Hello, 200. Hope all is going well. Dr. Allen, I'm assuming you kind of know that. We're finishing up. So I tell you what, instead of me just sitting here babbling, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And we're going to go over a few things here this week. Won't be too terribly long, but I do want to, we're kind of getting into some aspects to finish up everything. It's been great. I've actually seen and talked to a lot of you like on and off here in the last week or two, but I do want to hit the syllabus real quick just to kind of make sure we're all on the same page. This lecture relates to weeks 11:16 through 11:22. I'm going to touch on one thing real quick. I know someone might ask here in a minute, but um, a couple of things. One, video discussion with the Flipgrid this week. Video 11 is totally optional. There's 10 that are required. I put an 11th one up just in case anyone missed one and they needed an extra credit. You are welcome to do it for extra credit. It's the 10 points either way, but I'm not requiring anyone to do number 11 unless you feel like you have to or you need to make up something. So video discussion 11 is up. Before, I'll probably say this again in our like wrap up email, but I want to thank everyone for the patience with the flip grids and as far as the taking sides, because I know sometimes someone will catch an article. I have two editions of the book and I try to make sure that two are up. Every once in a while, someone will have something different. I apologize. That was the shortness of me getting this class a week or two before the semester started and the book already being put in, but you all have been very patient. So for that, I appreciate it. I've tried to make sure that everyone's book was being able to be used though. That was kind of my main goal, especially since you had to get it. Which is important. Next thing, Dewey discussion board, that is up. This will be related to, your ideas and whether you think basically Dewey's ideas are even based in reality in today's schools. Is social experience important? That will be up on the Dewey discussion board. Those have been really good. I have not had the opportunity yet when I'm filming this to read the Dewey discussions related to the objectives and blooms and such. But I'm kind of excited to see that because one, that's kind of starting to get into a little bit of lesson planning type stuff. So I want to see where everyone is at. That'll be fun. The other thing at the end of this week, and on this, it's a little different on Sakai. I'm going to fix the date because I don't want any confusion. Your Gardner presentations are due. The requirements are posted. I'll go back over them on this lecture just to make sure that we're on the same page. I do need those. Before the end of this, before break, I'm going to post them up on a board, and I would like everyone to kind of do a little bit of feedback and such. I will post them up on the board. I'm going to work on that over break. Also, I wanted to give out this disclaimer before I go over the Gardner things. Thank you all very much for your patience. I know the grading's been a little dragging, a little behind in the last week or two. I apologize for that. I've been trying my best, but I don't want to give an excuse, but I'm going to give a small one. Everyone's trying to finish up student teaching in their field experiences before Thanksgiving break. So we've had a lot jammed in. And a lot of the times when I would be normally trying to get your stuff graded, I've had to go out and see someone, especially once Berkeley was live on live. It's nice to be able to see someone in a live classroom. So we've been trying to do that. It is an excuse, but I don't want it to be an excuse. It's just one of those things that happens. I am making it my goal to make sure that before you're all back on break, though, everything should be up to date. I know I say every weekend, most of the time I get caught up over the weekend, but this week I've been a little bit behind. So, and when I say this week, I'm recording this on the 12th. So I'll do my best. So with that being said, just to rehash a couple things before we talk about something, I wanted to throw the Gardner. Was I smart enough to put it up here? I didn't look before I logged in. That was probably not a smart thing. Do I have it under there? I feel like I do. There it is. The Gardner, there it is. Okay, remember with the Gardner, you're picking one of Gardner's multiple intelligences and you're creating a video. And remember, I told you don't have to put your face on. You could do this. I record these most of the time on Zoom and in talk. You don't have to do it this way. If you want to use a PowerPoint or Keynote and post it up, that is fine. And you just do those things that are right there. Should individuals, why do you believe certain individuals that fit that bill? Oh, let me rephrase that. So if you're doing something like the kinetic learning, who are individuals that you think would fit that bill? So it might be like Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, whoever, Tom Brady. Um, that's it. Why are they kinetic type learning? And then, that's whatever one you find most interesting, do. Provide a lesson or approach that you would do to address this intelligence in the classroom. I'm not asking for a lesson plan. That's not what I'm asking. I just want something that you would do in the classroom, or an activity that you've either seen, that you've researched about, or that you thought would be really good. So maybe since I have kinetic and I mentioned it, maybe you'll have students do something where they have to do stations and they're getting up and walking from station to station. That deals with kinetic type activity. Students are up and moving. It also incorporates other things too, but that would be an example. Make sure you have a small, some sort of visual. It can be a PowerPoint, it can be a Nearpod, whatever. And once you share these, I will post these before we come back, and I'd like you to respond to each one of them. There's also, I thought, that's kind of basically it. It doesn't have to be anything long. I just want you to get used to talking and sharing things and having ideas and things like that. We'll post all these up and share them. So that's the Gardener. Let me get to the calendar real quick. If you noticed, I said I'd come back to this. Gardener is actually due at the end of this week, which technically would be the 22nd. I'm going to tell you, I think I didn't want to make things complicated on the syllabus. I know we're technically open these weeks, and I think we come back sometime in there, I think around the 2nd. I don't care if you're a little crunched for time. I get it. If you can get me the Gardener a little bit after this, I just need it before Thanksgiving. That's all I'm really asking. So you actually have until the 22nd to get me or 25th to get me the presentation. If you want to do it before, it's, less stress. Also, if for some reason it won't load up on Sakai, sometimes Sakai has limits on the size file. All you need to do, you'll get this in EdTech, by the way, but that's down the road. When you log into email, you've probably seen this screen before, and these are things that I've gotten from other students and such. If you click here, there's something called OneDrive that slowly opens. You just hit upload. You can upload your video to OneDrive and share it with me. Once it uploads, it's there. It has a huge amount of storage space. So you can do it that way too. You don't have to. If you can get it up on Sakai, that's fine. Or if you have another way that you can email it, that's fine. I don't care if you email it. I don't care if you put it on Sakai. I don't care if you share it on OneDrive, is basically what I'm saying. I just need it. I have a feeling they shouldn't be too bad. The only time we really usually have problems is if someone films themselves teaching. But just in case, just get it to me somehow. I have a little file for you all on my emails, and I will throw it there. The other thing before we get going, a lot of this is nuts and bolts. I can tell we're getting towards the end. I'm going to jump down here. If you look, we're kind of getting into this. Couple things. I'm going to post those Gardener things after break. We'll do a little discussion. I'm going to post another video up when we come back after the break, just to kind of make sure we're hitting everything home. There is a final in this class. Don't worry, it'll be like the other one. It's going to be multiple choice and things like that. It isn't supposed to be anything, and I will get a study guide out to you. It's just the stuff that's posted since the midterm now. But I don't even know if it'll be as long as the midterm. I haven't determined that yet. But one thing I want to make sure that we're on the same page with, it's been goofy. I'll be the first person to admit it, mostly because we have so many schools that are closing, opening, COVID, things like that. We kind of adapted. We've met a few times and did some service learning things. You could have done the Google Classroom. You could have done the sessions where we're meeting and watching the film on the Western versus Chinese approaches to education. There's best practice videos that are posted up on Sakai if you need them. Some of you have been tutoring. I just basically, sorry, looked like my thing froze. I don't know if it filmed that or not. That was bizarre. If not, you'll probably think I'm really crazy. But anyway, some of you have been doing different things, coaching. The main thing is you got to do two things for me with the service learning. You got to turn in a log, just document what you did. If you've been doing it outside of what we've done in this class, make sure you have someone initial it. And there is an essay. When the next video that I post up, I will make sure that I have the guidelines for the essay. The guidelines for the essay are actually on the syllabus if you need them. But It's a little different because we didn't work with the Boys and Girls Club this time. So basically, you're just kind of focusing on what you would learn, what you would take out, things of that nature. And actually, I'll pull it up. Sorry, my watch fell off. I'm going to fix it. And I'm not going to stop filming because I filmed so much stuff this semester, that I don't know if I have it in me to start over again. See, there when it's fixed. All right. But that is it. Let me go back up here. I think it's right here. Presentations. That's the Gardener if you need it. Oh, syllabus is a wonderful thing. Everything's always on here. At least it's supposed to be. There it is. I do need the service learning log. You can take a picture, put it up on Sakai. That's fine. And I understand it's going to be goofy. It actually somewhat breaks my heart that you all didn't get to actually do the normal stuff with Boys and Girls Club and Job Corps, but it is what it is. It's not your fault. It's not the school's fault. It's not Boys and Girls Club. It's not Job Corps fault. It is what it is. You just need to do an essay. Now, if you look on here, it talks about, the institutions and things like that. You can't do this. I mean, you haven't been at those two organizations. Here's what I want you to focus on. Sorry, my Zoom froze again, and I wanted to make sure that you all hear that. This is what you need to focus on with these service learning essays. What have you learned about students and yourself as a teacher from watching these? And even if you just did videos, you can still learn some things that you might think that you're going to be strong at, what you're going to be weak at. Even think about gardener stuff that you think way you might approach things. If you're doing tutoring, you obviously are probably starting to feel some things. I know some of you actually in this class, because you've reached out to me, and I think this is actually awesome. I know some of you have been in English. You've actually done some stuff in some of the classes, and you've taught lessons. And actually, even in History 333, I think a few people in this class are in that class. And you've done some presentations and objects and taught people about it. Those are skills that you've learned, and you can kind of pick up what you think your strengths and your weaknesses are. If you're going to pick anything up out of this anything, it is the importance of reflection and how you approach things and how you teach. Obviously, you may have goals, you may not. If just watching a video isn't really a goal, but if you did some actual instruction, you can. But just focus on that. And then here it says, has your service influenced your understanding of educational issues? Well, the service or the videos that you've done, has it helped you understand some of the concerns and such? There's the video even up on Finland. I think it does a lot. If you remember back before break, there was one that was posted just that you could have watched. I think it gets into a lot of the issues with education. Make sure your paper's an APA. It needs to be about 3 to 5 pages. And a lot of it's just self-reflection. Like, what do you think you need to do as a teacher? What do you need to grow at? What do you want to learn in the future? Things like that. So that's your service learning requirements. Don't forget about that. And the gardener. That's the major stuff and nuts and bolts. Now, the fun stuff. If you look this week, and this wasn't planned, but I thought it was kind of interesting. It's technology and It's technology and my Zoom's acting funny. Sorry. Did you see that jump? This wasn't planned, but technology and education was actually up on the one Flipgrid, and you all actually had 2 or 3 different Flipgrids you could have, or articles from Taking Side that you could have done your Flipgrids on. I think every single one of the in this class did, and this was from 2 weeks ago, did the one on virtual learning. I don't even know if the virtual learning was in everyone's books. I didn't think it was, but that's all right because all the posts were really good, and it is a timely issue. And one thing I thought was interesting is everyone, and I did send out a little announcement, hopefully you read it. There are issues right now with virtual learning, but I think that prompt was basically getting into the things is, what is the rollout or how do you think it's going to be? That was written before a COVID world. So I think it's a little hard to judge schools at the moment. I would say if we're in the same boat next year, I really hope not, but if we're in the same boat next year or next fall, there should be a lot of wrinkles hammered out. But it was like I was telling my wife the other day, it feels like it's been forever. This has really only been going on since March. So schools have had to do a whole dynamic shift in 6 months to, in some cases, if you're in Frederick County, Washington County's going back. I know a lot of people in Jefferson County have elected to do this. They've become virtual, and there's ebbs and flows, and there's trial and error. I think in an ideal world, the answers to these questions might be a little different if we weren't seeing some of the effects of the knee jerkness of having to do this. But I thought the points were really valid. And I think a lot of people were really saying, there's things that need worked out, but it is the future. And I do agree. It's probably quicker than what we envisioned. And I think that even with that article, they weren't envisioning COVID and the things that are going to happen. But it's here to stay. I think we're going to have virtual classrooms. Let me see that. Sorry, I jammed again. I don't know if it's doing that when you're seeing it. We're going to have virtual classrooms forever, I think now. Even if we go back to a normal world, I think this virtual option is going to stay. If anyone was in the Jefferson or the Google Classroom training, I think even the technology coordinator has said that they're talking about having a path for permanent virtual schooling for students in their county if they want it. So it is the reality. Now, I think once you get to that, there's going to be a lot of bells and whistles and things hammered out before then. You know what? It's apples and oranges, but even Shepherd, we still have growing pains. I can't vouch for every class. I can't vouch for this class. But there's been headaches with this move over to virtual. I'm sure communication's always an issue, things like that. I'm sure there's been things that I could have done better in this class. I'm sure there's things in other classes that could have been done better. But, again, it's just you find out what works and what doesn't. With all that being said, I pulled up something. I'm going to post some articles up. They're not required reading, but I was just doing some things about, technology in the classroom in the future. And I just I'm a KISS guy, but basically, keep it simple, stupid kind of thing. That helps me. I like to do that. And I think in terms of lists and advantages and disadvantages, pros and cons, things like that. This was a list that I kind of put together from the articles that I thought really highlighted, the way education is kind of going and the pros and cons. Like I say, I think technology is here to stay in the schools. But again, you got to kind of utilize a little bit. And I don't know, most everyone in here is in 200, but I think once you start to get out in the field, starting after this class, really a lot more, even this class, you would have only been doing service learning. But once you're actually out in the schools, I think one thing that you're probably going to be staggered by, at least sorry, I froze again. I froze again, sorry. One thing that I'm always staggered by, I think a lot of people think students are excellent at technology, especially, in middle and high school. Students are not always that great at technology. They're great at iPads and the apps on them if they're games. They're great with Xbox. They're great with phones. But as far as the actual software, whenever you do a technology-based lesson, a lot of times I always used to plan at least a half a period. Sometimes if it was complex tech, it would sometimes take me a whole period to get everyone situated and ready to roll. So when we did the actual activity or the instruction, everyone was on the same page. So I think you're going to find technology is a double-edged sword, even like trying to use it in the classrooms as far as your time and whether students can actually utilize it. Sorry, I keep watching my Zoom a little bit too to make sure I'm not freezing. So with all that being said, here are some advantages and disadvantages as far as technology. And again, I don't want to sell students short, but I think you're going to be surprised that, you're going to spend more time when you use technology trying to get everyone on the same page. It only takes one to rock the boat, so to speak. So what are some advantages with technology in education? It's a life skill. Last week I talked about 21st century skills, and if you looked, technology is on there. Now, you might say, what type of technology? Well, to me, it's useful technology. It's PowerPoint, it's Word, it's utilizing doing computers, it's iPad use, getting comfortable using it. I'm sure all of us have family members that have refused to use tech. I love them to death, but I'm going to use them as an example. My in-laws, they still don't have the internet, and I'm not making that up, but it's starting to become something where it's, I don't want to say a pain for them. It's something where it becomes a hindrance to them because they're starting to find that there are certain things that they have to go over to our house. Sorry, I froze again. We have to go over to, I'm going to pause this real quick. I'll be right back. Okay. I think I might have been, you might have seen me waving, and that's fine if you did. I'm gonna go back to my in-laws again. It's one of those things where they've been so resistant to actual filming or filming. I'm thinking about filming. They've been so resistant to getting technology that it's now to the point where they're not receptive to utilizing it. So now they're behind in everything. And I'm not saying they need to be, Bill Gates or Steve Jobs. It's just you got to be comfortable with doing things with that and willing to try new things with technology. It's a life skill. Simple as that. And sorry about that weirdness there. If I was waving, I was trying to get the camera right. Next thing, um, another positive with technology in textbooks is it up to date? And what I mean by up to date there, I don't know about if you you all probably experience this. When you have textbooks in schools, sometimes they're old. Now they're starting to upload textbooks on iPads and things like that, and they can update them right on the apps. It's a positive. I taught at a school, loved it. I actually taught at the school when I started. Uh, well, I taught at the school in not right when I started teaching, but it was in 2003. I think it was 2003. I actually came back to the school after I left for a while, and they still had the same textbooks. There were countries that were in that textbook that no longer exist. Now I'm talking when I came back, it was like 2010. So, and they were using the same one. So what I'm basically saying is textbooks are expensive, by the way. That's one reason why it was like that, and I could adapt. But it's going to be up to date. So next, freezing again. Sorry, I'm going to ignore it and just keep talking. But keeping your textbooks up to date. The world at your fingertips, I think, is self-explanatory, but you can get information instantaneously. Another thing with the tech, and I love this aspect. This is why I like Sakai a lot. It's paperless. One thing as a teacher that I used to have piles of papers, and I was pretty organized and had my folders. But it's still a lot to keep track of and paper clipping. With things like Google Classroom, I just noticed with my son, it's all there. When we used Google Classroom at the one school I taught at, even before all this happened, I started to utilize it a lot because I didn't have to chase papers down. You either turned it in or you didn't. There was no, well, I gave that to you, or it was on your desk and you had to have lost it. It doesn't happen. Turn it in online. And actually, I would strongly suggest to you, if you don't do a whole lot with technology in your classroom, I think going paperless is a really good idea. And one, it's a really good, I'm going to say this, but I don't know if it'll offend anyone or not. It's a good CYA. We won't break down that acronym too much. But basically what I'm saying is if they have to turn it in online, if it's there or it's not. Papers, sometimes there's some debate. I put easier once built. Building sites like Google Classroom or even like our Sakai sites or whatever learning management system a school uses, Google Classroom, Schoology is another one. Building it is a pain and it takes a lot of work. But once it's built, it's built. So it's the work's at the front end, and then you can add and update it and things like that. I had a website. I can pull it up here maybe at the end of the class and I'll just show you. And I just continuously built things and added things to it towards the end so students knew where to get handouts and such. Uh, improved participation, and what's that? You're probably thinking this is where you got to get out of the COVID type mentality a little bit. But what I was thinking is with the idea of improved participation. Improved participation is like if you're doing Nearpods and you can see if students are doing feedback, or if you're doing a Pear Deck and students have to answer and you can see who's responding. I'm not talking about turning off your camera and stepping out. I'm even talking if you're in the classroom and you can get responses. They're almost like responders type thing. If I'm doing a Nearpod and I have everyone's name up there and there's 20 students and someone hasn't answered, I'm going to know, so I can make them participate. Next, sorry, I want to make sure we're still recording. Yep, okay. Sorry, with the freezing, I get a little worried. I think you've already seen me do this a few times when I pause this share. But anyway, the one location for information is important. That's something that I liked a lot. And what I mean by that is when you post something up for a class, like on Schoology, parents know where to go, students know where to go. You can put all your handouts up there. It's where all your grades are. It's everything. So that's a good thing. People outside of your classroom don't have to fish for multiple things to find out or contact what a grade is. or where a grade is or where information is. I always had a home base. And if I did a handout, I always made a PDF and I posted it up. So if someone left it at school, guess what? They can go to my classroom or go to my Schoology page or go to my Google Classroom and actually get it there. There's no excuses. And they were like, well, I left it. Too bad. You know what? It's there. Same thing usually with Sakai. I mean, I know a lot of professors here do it. So it's a good thing for that. Data. Also, if you use the technology right, I mentioned Nearpod. That was something I like. You can Kahoot. You can do this too. I know everyone knows what Kahoot is. You can do kind of diagnostic type assessments and kind of get an understanding of what students understand and what they don't when you're doing things. So those are just some advantages. I'll put articles up that kind of dive into this a little more. But sorry, I froze again. But I don't know if you're going to see this, and I'm actually curious to see if my voice is on there or not. That totally distracted me through that whole thing. So I'm going to run through this, not the whole lecture, but just again. Advantages: technology is a life skill because you might use it forever. Up to date means like you won't get old, outdated textbooks and the apps update all the time. You have access to a lot of information. Paperless, probably my favorite. You can have things turned in. Students can't do the claim that you, the teacher, lost it. Maybe you've used that one before. Once you build it, it's there and you can add to it and it's awesome. Building it is a little bit time consuming though. And what I'm talking about is kind of like your home base on Schoology or your website or anything like that. But I actually thought that stuff was kind of fun. Building it. It's kind of like your home base. Can help with participation if you're using it in classroom lectures, maybe trying to get answers back and get an understanding. I mentioned data, but if you're doing Nearpod, you can get data on responses if students understand something in some sort of bell ringer or diagnostic assessment. And again, one location for everything for you, students, and parents. Those are some advantages. Some disadvantages, look, I had 9 and I decided not to go with that 9th. Technology can be a distraction sometimes, depending on how you're using it. I was doing an observation today, and students in 6th grade were actually working on a station project virtually. And they had a hyper document where, you can everyone can type on the document at the same time. There was some distractions going on there. A young man was writing curse words on it. Our student teacher handled it like a champ. But he got busted and it was causing a lot of headaches. So that would be one. Some people would also say there's less social interaction if you're using the technology in the classroom. I put that on there, and that is true if you're doing virtual type learning because you're not having that face-to-face type contact. I would say in some ways you might still interact if you're working on a project, but cheating. Obviously, if you're using more and more technology, students might be able to look something up or cut and paste and things like that, or look things up. Or if you're doing virtual learning, maybe someone's providing them answers. I used to always say I taught a high school and a college in the classroom type thing at a community college, and they had to write a paper, and a bunch of students actually submitted it we were on Blackboard, but they cut and pasted it and put it in the documents, but they left all the hyperdocs in it. And I kind of told them, I'm like, if you're going to cheat, at least give me a little bit of credit and at least try to change the font. But, cheating with technology is a little more prevalent. I would definitely agree with that. When you're utilizing technology, you do have to plan more, especially plan on getting students used to using the technology. Once they understand it, it's smooth sailing. But I think you do have to allot a little more time to get students used to understanding the tech tool. And again, I should reiterate this, and I think I did up top, but just in case I didn't, when I'm talking technology, I'm talking all technology. It could be presentation, it could be Google Classrooms, it could be Nearpod, it could be Wakelet, it can be PowerPoint, it can be Word, it can be HyperDocs. It's there's a lot of different things, and we'll talk a lot about this in Ed Tech because I probably will have some of you for that. Expense for schools, a lot of times technology is expensive depending on the technology. iPads are expensive, iPods or iPads are expensive. Maintaining the technology up to date is always a big thing. You got to keep it up to date, and that costs money. So that's something where you might get it, but if you're using a technology, you want to keep up with it, you got to find sources of funding. There's changes in technology. Some things go out of date, some are updated, some are don't work for what you need them to do anymore. Depending on maybe if you change, I put changes. Could be your changes in instruction, could be your changes in grade, could be changes in the technology, which is really primarily what I'm focused on there. But technology is always, I mean, think about it. Uh, Facebook's an easy one. When I was in not even I was done graduate school. I guess in the early 2000s, they what was it called? MySpace. Oh, I was in my doctorate. That's what it was. People had MySpace pages, and I don't even, does that even exist? AOL, when the internet blew up. Think about wireless internet versus the old phone modems. If you don't know what that is, ask your parents. It was crazy. It would tie your phone lines up, and you'd hear all this. So technology changes. What's reliable technology and unreliable? And what I mean by that is maybe sources, especially the internet, obviously, which falls under technology. Are students able to understand reliable sources? Of course, Wikipedia is always the good debate. I can't remember if it's in this class or in 380 I talked about it. I kind of came full circle on Wikipedia because I felt like a little bit of a hypocrite. If I looked up something, I would look on Wikipedia. I just wanted my students to have other sources other than Wikipedia. So if they use Wikipedia, there better be other things listed, or maybe to use some of the sourcing there, because most of the information on there, by and large, is generally correct. I don't think, some people act like every page is being altered all the time. I think as long as isn't political or celebrity oriented, most of the time it's pretty straightforward stuff. Um, I, I read a lot on Napoleon, and I don't think too many people are going in there and altering Napoleon Wikipedia information. I hope not. Hopefully, people have better things to do. But but what is reliable? The edu .us .gov. Those are reliable endings to the internet. Guy sitting in his parents' basement typing out blogs, probably not always the most reliable thing. So, that's a disadvantage. Students aren't always great about deciphering that. And of course, there's privacy concerns. And what I'm talking about is even typing in information. One thing that used to drive me bonkers with our students with Google Classroom, of course, you get Gmail. If they don't sign out, their Gmail was still open. Like if you have a Chromebook and they don't sign off of that Chromebook, the next person that comes in, the account's still open. They would go in and send out emails from the other person's email, which actually did cause some problems in one school I was at one time. So, there are privacy type issues. So you got to always make sure that your students are signing off and do the rules. So I'm going to post these up. And I know that first part was pretty chunky. Sorry, my screen, it's not doing it now, but it froze up. I mean, you already saw me doing the weird thing where I was trying to get the camera going. So sorry if that was a little funky at the top, but those are the advantages and disadvantages. If you have any questions, that is actually it. I hope you don't. I hope you were able to bear through that. We're almost done. You all have been awesome. Like I say, I'm not just saying this, you'll probably hear this a million times, but sorry, nose itch. I think that didn't look too bad on there, did it? I'll probably say this a million times, but just in case, you all have been awesome. I know hopefully everyone has an awesome Thanksgiving. I know you all kind of have rolled with it between having the textbook, switching to virtual when I think Dr. Hannah had it. It was going to be live, but then they decided they wanted all the education classes virtual, basically. Service learning, not having Boys and Girls Club or Job Corps. You've rolled with it. So look at that. I froze again. Let's see. Is it going to unfreeze? There. You've rolled with it. I appreciate it. And with that being said, that's it. Enjoy the turkey. Enjoy the potatoes. Thanks for bearing with the freezing. I have no clue why it's doing that, and it's driving me nuts. So talk to you later.